because we get a big turnout, and it's really due to George Leon, our former mayor, and Jason Wisha, who's over here, who started this a couple of years ago to come and tell us what's going on in Lake Forest. And they got popular, and then a couple of people said, well, what about Lake Bluff? And we said, I was embarrassed. We have not included Lake Bluff. So we now have village president, Regis, Charlot, and Drew Urban here to bring us up to date on their part of the community. So welcome. Um, let me just talk a little bit about Regis. He's, as you know, the president of the village. He was elected in April of 2021. He and his wife Leanne have a daughter and a son who've attended the Lake Bluff schools, and one of them's at the high school now. Regis is an innovator and entrepreneur, community leader. 30 years of service in his career, doing a lot. And he's an avid runner, biker, sailor, dog walker. He's all over the place. So we'll have him come and be here in a minute. And then let me turn to Mayor Randy Tack, who's here for the first time as the mayor. Randy was the movement in the Third Ward from 2011 to 2018. So he served in numerous city committees over that period of time, including Public Works and Bioservices. He joined Lake Forest Orthopedics after his residency in Rush Medical Center. And then he became a founding member of the Illinois Bone and Joint Institute. So Randy and his wife Paula support 4 children. And we're looking forward to hearing all about it. They just had a breakfast with the mayors, which I didn't go to, but they had a chance to practice. So we'll see how we go. So Randy and Regis, come on up. Okay, results. Yeah. All right. I'm like,
Going fast
are
here.
you on today?
Let's see what the next slide is. It looks like I'm first. Okay. As advertised, I'm Randy Tack, the new mayor of Lake Forest, relatively new. So what I'm going to talk about today is the current state of the city. And everything good that I have to say is the result of George and Jed and those before me, and everything bad is my fault. The good news is there's nothing bad. So we're going to go through finances, capital improvement, community development, and other things that are on the agenda, and then we'll have some questions, which is basically the part that I enjoyed the most. This stuff is pretty formal stuff. You may have heard it all before. Looks like the schedule starts with city finances. So when I started, I inherited a city that was in incredibly good financial shape. Again, thanks to George and Jed and the other folks on city council. We've had a balanced budget for years. Last year we had a surplus, which we actually applied to the athletic field project. I think it was about $4 million, if I'm not mistaken. We once again received a AAA bond rating, which isn't just sort of an innocuous award. It's really reflective of how well the city is run, and it has real implications. When we go out to borrow money, for instance, when we borrowed $12 million for the athletic project, we were able to do so at 2.8% interest. Did I get that right? And if you compare that to what the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois borrow money at, it's pretty meaningful in the short, intermediate, and long term. All of our financial reserves, all of our fund reserves are at or above their statutory requirements, which is typically somewhere from 15 to 25%, which is pretty remarkable. We are actively working to reduce our unfunded pension liability. We're doing things that very few other communities are doing. You probably already know some of it. If you look at your water bill, there's a charge on there for public safety pension. And that was something we started actually back when I was on city council that allowed us to make the community aware of the cost of paying for these pensions that we were obligated to fund. Whereas most communities have no idea what their unfunded liabilities are and what the relationship between that and their taxes is. We also, again, this is another George project, so George gets a lot of credit today. Is we started a program to essentially pre-fund our pension payments. So we've reduced our outstanding or unfunded pension liabilities quite a bit. I'm not sure what the number is now. So are we at 65% or 70%? Which is pretty remarkable. I think many communities are down in the 40s, which is really unsustainable. Over time, what this would have done to us is essentially take all of our discretionary funds away from us as our pension costs escalated. So by 2025, I think we will have flattened that out pretty well. This year we have $32 million in funded capital projects, which I think is a record for us. Pretty amazing. The project right next door to the club here is accounts for about 16 million of that, so it's a pretty substantial thing. Over the last few years, 5 years or so, we've been fortunate enough to receive almost $18 million in grant funding for public works and other capital projects. So the city's done a really fine job of not just using our local revenues well, but also gaining access to state and federal funding for projects. One of everybody's favorite topics is property tax, and we're happy to say that we continue to have the lowest property tax rate in Lake County. That being said, I am fully aware that that doesn't mean we have the lowest property taxes in Lake County, but that's just because your homes are highly valued. So this is actually a very positive thing. Lake Bluff is a most desirable unit.
Randy, thank you for saying that. Again, my name is Regis Charlot, and I have a tendency to speak very fast, so I'll slow down first. And in order to be focused, I also have notes so that we keep. Here, take this one. Thank you. So again, my name is Regis Charlot, and I was born somewhere else, and I have a tendency to speak very fast, so I'll try to slow down first. And I speak also with notes to make a few key points among these slides. Lake Bluff is a very desirable community to live with. It's the best place. We think this is the best place to raise kids. We have the pleasure to have Lake Bluff Sunrise Beach being the top beach in the United States, number 54. Well, this is until we decided to tear it apart and build a sanitary district extension on it. Our real estate market also became very competitive along the same lines. We must do something right as a community. We have worked very hard to create a very lean management community. We have done a lot of capital investment. We have done a lot of improvement on our service delivery. Lake Bluff basically functions with 9%. The village of Lake Bluff government functions with 9% of your taxes in Lake Bluff, and that accounts for fire, police, roads, garbage delivery, garbage pickups, and so on. The real estate market is also very tight in Lake Bluff, very challenging. We typically have 120 houses on the market. Right now, we have about 20 to 22 houses on the market. I heard of a house last on Scranton who was in the market for $835,000. It went out in 2 days for $1.1 million. This is our market right now. From a financial standpoint, we are extremely careful and extremely conservative in the way we manage our finances. What we have worked on very hard in the last few years is diversifying our revenue. as you can see right now. And so a third of our revenue is basically real estate. A third is sales tax revenue, for example. And you might notice here that COVID, the pandemic, actually did not affect us too much. So we must do something right in that respect. Randy?
As it relates to capital improvements, we already talked about the fact that we have $32 million of scheduled capital improvement projects in Lake Forest this year, the most significant of which is the Deer Path Community Park. For those of you who don't know what it is exactly, it's a 9.6 acre turf athletic field that will have baseball fields, football fields, soccer fields, pickleball, tennis, all contained within the structure. It's a lighted park. We spent almost $3 million on the project, actually working on infrastructure to make sure that it was an ecologically sound structure, as well as a structure that wouldn't contribute to stormwater management issues. I think that the amount of work that we put into that was probably unparalleled for other communities. Another major project we have going on is the Forest Park Bluff stabilization project. So many of you may know a few years ago when I was on council, the south end of the beach bluffs slid and we repaired that. Then after we repaired that, a few years later, the north end of the bluff slid, which only left the central part to slide. And so that we're working on now. That is also a multi-million-dollar project. It's scheduled to start, I believe, September 15th and is scheduled to be finished April 15th, so that hopefully it won't affect the summer beach season. In addition to stabilizing the bluff, many of you may remember the boardwalk that used to be on the bluff, that is no more. Well, that will be again. We have had a very generous donor step forward and agree to provide major funding for that. That will be a public-private partnership, and the current estimated cost of the total project is slightly over $2 million, if I'm not mistaken. That again would be, that project is expected to start in September and be done in April. We have a few other infrastructure projects going on. We have 3.1 miles of road resurfacing. I'm sure everybody's looking forward to that. We're doing some water main repairs currently on Sir William, and we have a planned storm sewer project on Awani Road, which desperately needs that. Let's see what's next. That is you.
Thank you. So we have a steady investment projection in all of our village assets. We will invest about $1 million in roads this year, about $300,000 in water system, and about $300,000 in sanitary sewer. This is normal maintenance. We also have a major issue in Lake Bluff, and you can see the spots in Lake Bluff, the blue little spots. This is all the potential area for storm water flooding. And so we have worked really hard in the last 4 years to study and imagine what could be the remediation to all these spots. And we started a project that is what we call the Deep Tunnel Stormwater Project, that will go from the viaduct, basically 176 and our metro train, and will basically carry water to Lake Michigan. That project is the largest project Lake Bluff has ever endeavored, but is about $20 million. $10 million is brought by the residents for the next 10 years in a utility fee on our water. And $10 million is brought by the county for about $3 million, by the feds for about $1 million, and by the IDOT for about $7 million. We expect that project to start in about 2 years. That project will dry up North Terrace, which is east of the metro no, west of the metro line and north of 176, westers, easters, that is south of that, and east Lake Bluff, that is what you can see east of Sheridan Road, for example. It's a big deal for us. It will really enhance the quality of life for our village. Um, and we will have basically that was actually a big deal, but we will have a fee on our water starting on July 1st. And the comment we got, we had many meetings in town, and the comment we had in town was, well, you guys should have started that earlier. And can you go faster doing that? Can you actually raise this fee higher so that you can actually resolve that issue faster? We'll have, you might have noticed Green Bay Road between 176 and the north limit of Lake Forest. We will rebuild like the Green Bay Road and the bridge that is at the limit of the two communities in 2025. So it will be mayhem, but it will be better for your traffic. And we'll get to rebuild also all the water infrastructure below Green Bay Road. Also on our radar has been if you go to Lake Bluff Beach, we have a North Beach and we have a South Beach. And South Beach is where we have Lake Bluff Yacht Club, that is a small boat, very vibrant community. We are redoing basically the sanitary infrastructure in Lake Bluff. And so that is a $17 million project where we get to build a reservoir that is similar to yours in Lake Forest on your South Beach. And we'll basically manage to not having any sanitary wire surrounding our beach. That should be our bid could be back in the next 8 months.
Our next topic is development projects, and this relates to Central Business District as well as just building projects around town. As many of you have noticed, we've had approximately 10 new restaurants show up in Lake Forest in the last few years. Most recently being Hometown and Sophia and La Colonial, all of which are doing extremely well. I think actually quite a bit better than they themselves anticipated. So that's positive. It does come with some other issues. Parking is one that is on our radar screen. For those of you who've been to the hospital, you know there's a lot going on over there. They are building a parking garage, which has been long needed. It's a bit of a mess, but actually it's going along pretty well. They're also scheduled to start 2 new pavilions, expanding the emergency room. Those projects will extend over the next, I think, 4 to 6 years, actually. We've had 41 new single-family homes in town, as well as 60 new multifamily residences added to the local housing stock. Coming soon to the City Council will be a presentation of a chapter of the comprehensive plan for the Central Business District. This is a project that I was working on before I actually became mayor. The goal of the project was to look 10 to 15 years down the road as to the demands on the Central Business District for development and what those might require in order to preserve and protect the character and the history of the Central Business District. The plan is not a plan to build. So many people thought that this would be a recommendation to build X, Y, and Z. It's really not. It's a plan designed, it's a conceptual to encourage property owners and developers to come to us with projects that enhance what we have and improve the vitality of the Central Business District. We're trying to create an element of predictability for property owners and developers so that they present us with projects that we're likely to say yes to because they're already designed in a way that's compatible with the Central Business District as you know it. This plan is going to focus principally on what we're calling the inner ring. So Market Square itself is what we refer to as the central core. And Market Square doesn't really lend itself to redevelopment. It is what it is, and the structures aren't going to change. Those are, mostly repurposing of existing structures as business demands require. But the area immediately around the central core Market Square is an area that doesn't have a great deal of historic structures in it. Many of the structures are not of particular architectural merit, and many of them are obsolete or life safety problems. And you wouldn't necessarily know this. I didn't really know it until I took a walking tour of the area, and you actually see that there's quite a bit that is likely to happen in that area, particularly as these new businesses like the restaurants drive more people into the central business district. There'll be demand for development of these properties. And so this proposal is a proposal to create a set of reasonable guidelines, if not standards, for how that development may occur. And much of it is focused on infrastructure that the city can create to sort of enhance and encourage development. As part of this discussion, we will have to have some discussions about parking because it is already somewhat of an issue. And if we are successful in encouraging development, parking will become a bigger issue that we'll have to address. Let's see what else we have on here. Oh, now we're on to your go.
Thank you. So from our standpoint, we should have 10 restaurants opening in Bluff, placing not happening. We have a few changes downtown. Block 1 is where you can find the brewery, for example. We have Hansa, very, very vibrant during the weekend, a lot of bikers stop in Lake Bluff. It looks like a turnaround point. A lot of people stop for coffee, and so downtown Lake Bluff at 7 a.m. on Saturday is actually pretty vibrant. We have a couple of restaurants opening down on Block 2 that would be next to Innova Sea, for example. So half and half pizza will take a full space. We also have activity on Block 3 that is that vacant bank lot that we call Block 3, that was a PNC bank. We have looked at developing that space. We have competitive activity with developers, one being a Toko in Winnetka Valley for Woodland. That is an Italian restaurant, high-end, but will be fun. So we'll see what happens. Alternatively, there might be development of condos in that space. So frankly, let the best win in that space. We have activity on our business park. Our business park is occupied at 95%. So at this point, we are trying to optimize what best we can actually favor on that space. And so that would be, for example, self-storage facilities. Similarly to Lake Forest, we'll start to revise our comprehensive land use plan. And again, it is important to us, as you might have noticed on our financial chart, a good comprehensive land plan is actually motivates a very diversified revenue for the town. So it's important to us. Also, we have had a few questions in the past about Stonebridge. Stonebridge was the old Harrison House space. Nothing's happening. Now, we wish something was to happen, but nothing's happening.
For the summer, we just obviously had the 4th of July celebrations that I wasn't there, but I understand went off without a hitch. So happy about that. We have Lake Forest Day coming up with the usual parade and carnival. We have the Lake Forest Music Festival, August 19th. One thing I would like you all to be aware of is this community-wide survey that's coming to you. It should come to you in the mail, but it's also something that can be completed online or even in person if you want to, do it over the telephone. There's options for all of those things. This is obviously something that's going to allow us to take the pulse of the community and find out what people who live here want to see. Sometimes, at the city council level, things get a little bit narrow. It's helpful to have some wider input. So this is a good opportunity. So I would ask all of you, when you receive this material, to one way or the other, complete it and get it back to us. And then obviously, as the summer ends, we will begin working more on strategic planning. We already discussed the fact that the discussions of the Central Business District chapter of the comprehensive plan will be discussed at the upcoming city council meeting. So that may be, if you are really bored tonight, something you want to watch online. Hopefully we can make it interesting for you.
So, Bluff. So let me remind you that we had 32 events last year in between May and September downtown Bluff. So we're doing the same thing this year. I'm happy to say that we had a successful 4th of July celebration, no events in between Fireman's Ball to the parade on July 4th. So we're very happy about that. A lot of work went into projecting the perception of safety downtown. So a lot of preparation to that day for the past year. Again, we'll have our farmers market every Friday from April to basically October. We have our Bluff concert series on Sunday afternoon. This is fun. Lots of kids, lots of animations. It's real fun. We have a couple of celebrations that are we have block parties. I think we have 8 block parties during that time until the end of the summer. And eventually we'll have our criteria. That is a bike race downtown. We literally close downtown Lake Bluff. We have a mile race, and we basically put Lake Bluff at the same level as Miami and Salt Lake City for city size with that event. And
When David is looked over, goes, all right, I didn't know about YouTube. Or there we go.
that will be like Bluff, like Chicago.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I think we're done.
There is a question?
Is this one?
You know what it is?
Jennifer, we don't mind repeating your question for people who are listening as well. So,
Okay.
we're not sure.
I have a question for the librarian president. Bill lives next to the library. I think there's some good news going over there, and you may want to comment on the library as well.
Well, I'll let somebody who actually knows a lot about it comment on it. So we can.
In our first board meeting, John Johnson, past president of the library. I turned him to treasurer, but on our first meeting in July of 2021, we were meeting in the city council chambers because it was COVID. You couldn't meet unless you were well spaced, and we wanted to have room for the public. And the conversation through that night, we lost power. We finished the meeting using our cell phones, and we prioritized the dome. And we are finishing the dome, all the building work is completed. There's a new design for rain where there was no gutter around the dome. And we're finishing the gutters and spout, and also the cleaning of the limestone in the coming weeks. Scaffolding comes down in August, so that's project complete.
Any other questions?
Dream that down during the
I'm going to let Jason answer your first question because he knows the actual numbers related to that. So the question was, how is retail going downtown?
Sure, I'm happy to jump in. I can say I don't have specific vacancy rates. I certainly can get that information. I will say, in a general sense, we still have a fairly vibrant retail industry, largely predicated on local businesses that have strong customer bases. But as part of the discussions that were under Mayor Jack chair of the working group for the Central Business District, I think there's an understanding that the retail industry more broadly is changing in a way that retail alone is not going to be sufficient to sustain the entire business district. So as we have spaces that are available and they can be repurposed or adaptively reused into other uses. So there's been a lot of focus on restaurants and other experiential uses that can be replicated easily in retail. I think that's going to be an important area of focus. So the short answer is we're very fortunate to have some strong local businesses that have deep roots and connections with the customer base and the community. But it's a challenging time for retail, and we know that those trends are not likely to reverse anytime in the near future.
That being said, she has one more question. That being said, there are businesses that are just doing exceedingly well. I think for those of you who are familiar with Smith's Men's Store, just as an example, this was a business that was really on the edge of disappearing. And that business is so successful and so vibrant. They expanded from 4 employees, 2 of whom were the owners, to now I think we have 17 employees. They added, I think, 1,500 square feet of retail space. They do substantial online business, and their drawing area is about 25 miles. They draw from Barrington, and it's become a destination retail site. So also, La Colonial, I believe, met their revenue targets and exceeded our sales tax revenue targets for them very, very quickly. And all the businesses are doing very well. Hometown spoke to the owner, told me that at 1 month they were doing almost the same amount of business they were in their flagship, primary store. So we do have a lot of successes, and hopefully that can drive more interest as people see coming to Lake Forest or to a community like Lake Forest, Lake Bluff as an alternative to seeking out these experiences downtown. So the second question was about the parking thing and what are you thinking about? And I mean, there's not a lot of creative solutions to parking, right? I mean, it's surface parking requires space that we don't have. So the reality is, at some point in time, there will have to be some discussion about parking structures. And although, when you say that, a lot of people immediately their ears perk up and they want to dig in on that one. But there's parking structures and there's parking structures. The devil is in the detail all the time. And if you take it off the table, you might as well not even discuss it because there's no other real solutions for increasing surface area for parking except going up and down some. So we haven't had any specific discussions about that, just so that the word doesn't get out. That, hey, see, I told him he's going to build a parking structure in the middle of whatever. But that doesn't mean that there won't be conversations about it, because there will. So I'm going to let you answer the same questions from Lake Bluff.
Regarding parking, we actually were curious as trustees and village president to what the situation is in Lake Bluff, especially if you're here on Friday morning during a market, village market time. Studies have shown that we have enough parking, that we have enough space in between the streets and public parking and the train station parking. So during the week, we're always about we have about 50% occupancy during the week available to. I mean, we are total maximum of 50% occupancy. Regarding retails, we're doing well. We see that through sales taxes. My wish is that we expand that activity to the north side of Scranton. Okay, if we could expand with more businesses, more restaurants on the north side. There are some really neat places where we could have restaurants. There's a U-shaped courtyard on the other side of Bluffingtons, for example, that would be absolutely awesome. And I wish also we get Toko coming to us as an Italian restaurant. That would be fun.
Yes.
Issues. There's something for the percentages of recreation, like of course, to have the beach, and then there's these pilots that are not going to they can work together or regular meetings, or how is that all?
Well, I've only been doing this for 3 months, so I'll let Regis give you the real scoop on that. From my standpoint, I would view this as a separate and somewhat situation. In other words, they have a park district, so under the guise of the city, we have very different facilities and available to us in the different communities. I don't see that there actually is a lot of parks and rec, a lot of intersection between the two communities.
So from a government standpoint, village and city of Lake Forest, village of Lake Bluff and city of Lake Forest, we co-bid for projects. So for example, your roads are typically the same contractor. And so for us, for an economy of scale, we're about a quarter of the population of Lake Forest. So for us, it's having the two communities bid together is great for the communities. So from a financial economy of scale, we are already doing that. Now, from a government standpoint, Lake Bluff has 4 governments that are park district, school, library, and the village. So it will be more it's a little bit difficult to achieve because we have more than one government talking to Lake Forest, for example. Now, from a village standpoint, I completely agree with you. I mean, if we could share resources, golf courses, beach and a swimming pool, for example, that would be great. I know some very fine people have their kids learn to swim at the swimming pool in Lake Forest. So no, we're a small community. We're only about 30,000 people. I mean, we might as well work together. I mean, we have the same goals. We all care for how our children are raised in this community. We share the same high school, so it all makes sense.
Jason?
One brief thought for both of our communities, we do actually work very closely with a shared service model for a variety of different services, which, as the president said, does produce an economy of scale. So whether it's in community development services, plan review services, things like that, certainly Lake Bluff residents participate in some of the unique senior and youth services like Courier here in Lake Forest, the Dickinson Hall for senior resources. And so that is pretty certain media perhaps isn't true, but the communities have had a really strong partnership in a way that all maximizes the level of quality of services that residents in both communities receive, but also does achieve that economy of scale. So there is a lot of places.
Absolutely true. Thank you. And I forgot about Korea and our senior sign-on source. So thank you, Jason.
Talk a little bit about Westlake tourists when they got over there. With a lot of training.
Oh, so the train issue. Okay. Sure. So, the west side metro line, was obviously a topic of some interest over the past few years. And the big concern initially was that there was a proposal not to build, but to contemplate adding a third track to the metro line, which used to be the old Milwaukee Road line, west side, extending actually from Chicago all the way to Mitchell Airport, if I'm not mistaken. This was never a proposal to build, it was conceptual. And the idea was that in order to enhance Amtrak service and perhaps enhance metro service, that you would need to move some of the heavy rail, freight rail off the line for periods of time. This project never had any financial backing. It was really a project that was conceptual only. And for most of you know this, but all freight lines or rail lines are controlled by the federal. There is no state or local jurisdiction over those. So when I was on city council toward the end of my term, we were asked to weigh in on this and to, for lack of a better term, to sort of participate in the fight against this. But the reality was we didn't have a dog in the fight. In other words, our only ability to fight was to contact federal reps and encourage them to express our interests at the Surface Transportation Board, et cetera. Anyway, several years later, the proposal for that project were a holding track, which you probably also heard. They might pull freight trains off tempo, allow commuter rail. All those projects are for the foreseeable future dead. They weren't approved by the Surface Transportation Board. They will be no funding for them. They aren't going to help. What is happening on the west side is that they are installing crossover switches so that Metra can turn trains around and provide return service to Chicago that is really important for the business community in our area. And it's heavily supported by Lake County Partners, which is a business consortium, because we had a period of time in the evening where we had no return service on the west line in Chicago. So all of the people who took the train up to Lake Forest to work at Pfizer and all the other businesses up this way would have to go to the east line and go back to the city that way. Now with the crossover switches, they're going to add return service, and so that will only enhance the commuter rail service for the city of Lake Forest. So that's essentially where we are.
we could talk about on the, down by Sunset, when we're gonna, in the Catholic Church, when we're gonna change the intersection a little bit. And then lighting some turn lanes and such, so.
I'm familiar with the project, so we are, is that on the schedule on the books to start?
In 1 to 2 years, yeah.
Okay. So there is a plan in place to, the intersection of, what is it, Old Elm and Waukegan Road, Sunset Food, St. Pat's, Pesquazi's used to be all that. That intersection is a horrendous intersection. And there is a plan to add turn lanes there that should improve traffic flow substantially, but it's a big project. Because you're gonna have to, take out, some land that currently isn't roadway. But I don't know the details. Of course, that's a 1 to 2 year project from now.
I could add also to Brandy's comment about intersections. So you're talking about Sunset. Our problem is 41 and 176, and that has been in plan for about 10 years, and we're moving forward. We have a few cases with buying equipment that might not be made in the United States for pumps that are basically drying up that spot. But basically, we should expect that intersections to be redone in the next 10 years. So I was told government is very slow and naturally not very patient. But we really want that to be improved, purified, more businesses to join that area.
Others?
All right, well, on behalf of Dan Walters, my co-chair, and David Sweet, we really appreciate you coming and get back next year and look for the update. This is an annual event, so thank you very much for coming in. Come out on Sunday. We have a great presentation and premiere. And on the Howard premiere, and Tim Reynolds, one of our members, is gonna take you through how that part is constructed this work. It's gonna be a great presentation. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for being here.
Right. Yep. What you down here? Hey, great to see you again. Great, nice to meet you.
Kind of like you.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it.